Hello, my friends. I'm coming to you today. I decided I would try something a little different and I would show you my process. I'm going to start a new story that I have an idea for, and I wanted to show you that process. So, my name's StoryMan-Jack, or Jack. And before we get started, I wanted to show you this real quick. Um, this is Star Wars. This is how it was created. Um, You have a hero, he's called to action, he refuses it, he meets that mentor, and they don't have to necessarily be in this order. But this is the way most people inadvertently write the best stories. I mean, this is all taken from the way myths and legends were created in order for them to survive and flow through the stream of time. If they're not set up this way, they don't last as long. Even things like Gilgamesh and Beowulf uh, follow a lot of these basic rules. I always keep this around just so I can remind myself where the great people, what they actually do. Um, but so my process is this: I come up with an idea, and this idea I have currently I got from a poem. Yeah, just two examples of uh, hugely successful novels and series of novels that were gotten from lines of poems were The Dark Tower by Stephen King and the other one is Game of Thrones or Song of Fire and Ice. I believe Song of Fire and Ice was Robert Frost and The Stand was Browning. Um, Child rolling to the dark tower came, I believe, was the line. And so this is one of those things that I I'm going to do when I have an idea for a fantasy, dark fantasy novel. And our hero is not a hero, he's a bad guy. But there are worse people. And so what I'm going to do, uh, I'm going to hit a couple of emotional spots. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about this series of videos. So I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet, but just giving you guys my creative process. If you have any comments about the way I'm doing this, if you think I'd be better off or more efficient doing something else, we can always learn more. And I really want to see those ideas. But what I'm going to do is go through these little short videos and show you what I'm doing, and then at the end, I'll have the video of the story that I've created. So there, Stephen King says this a lot, that there's no idea store, that there's no place you go to get your ideas. They just come up. I was uh, I was actually looking for a quote for Valentine's Day, and I ran across one, and everybody knows this poem. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Um, in a format because I have a book that has a minute, so it has this in it. So I'm gonna try and find it. Let's see. Okay, so this is the poem. Everybody's heard it. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace, which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express, how pure, how dear. Well, you get the idea, right? So, I've already kind of come up with an idea for the characters. So let's talk about the characters because that's where I start. The way I write a story is I have a general idea of where it's going to go, but I do not plot. I can't plot. Every time I plot, the results are horrendous because I've always been and always will be a people watcher. I study I studied a bit of psychology. I minored in psychology, and I like to study people. That doesn't mean that I'm better than everybody else or anything. I like taking a character and creating them and fleshing them out as realistic as possible. You know, most writers base it on, and I do too, aspects of self because um, you may be filed away in a little niche as you're this type of person or that type of person, but we all have gradations of different personalities within ourselves that come out at different times. So you, in a way, you would say everybody has multiple personality disorder, except it's not a conscious thing. But what I do is I create the character, flesh them out as much as I can, or groups of characters, and then I put them in a situation. So let's see. Let me bring. Okay, getting started. Now, I write an hour a day every day. Even if it's bad, even if I end up throwing it away or putting it away that I don't use the story, I might come back to it if I think it's good. I've got a few that are really a lot of muck, but there's some jewels in the muck that you can clean out. So character creation. Uh, I am going to create the main character of this, and his name. I want to hit a resonance with people, and uh, kind of like they did with Mandalorian. The first bad guy, the client that you came across, Werner Herzog. He spoke with a very guttural and Germanic accent, and people in the West, in America, that guttural, her, uh, in a way, that guttural accent that comes from that area, that region of the world, um, has a quality to it because we've been bombarded with tales of World War II and the rise of Germany and everything. That's not to say just because somebody speaks German, but is bad or anything. What I'm saying is that having a guttural uh, accent like that, as opposed to a melodic one that Latin and Greek are, and Asian, a lot of the Asian dialects are. Um, Feeds into, I wouldn't say fear, but apprehension, perhaps. So I'm going to name my character Viet Loader. And there's a reason for this. There's a novel that I wrote, and uh, the main bad guy was this character, and I wanted to know. I'm thinking this tale could tell us where where he could go. So Viet Loader, um, he he was a former aristocrat, elite, rich. Used to be, used to be. So what happened was that there was an uprising, and the status quo was overturned, and most of the ruling class were killed. Viet Loader managed to escape, but he's on the street. He has no money. He lived a life of luxury. He has no other choice. So he, instead of picking himself up and working, he did what a lot of people do, and they take the easy way. This easy way, uh, he became a thief, cutthroat, murderer. And when we find him, he's going to be in a situation where he has zero resources. And so he's going to have to do what he needs to do in order to get back to where he thinks he belongs. Um, at this point, And I'm thinking he's a drunk. He's a drunk. He's arrogant, and uh, and looking for a way to get back to where he was. Okay, so I got a little spell check. All right, so that's all we really need to know at this point. So what I do is I take these characters, and we're going to start off with just the one character. Uh, we're going to be in his head throughout this entire story. So he's the most important character. He's the antagonist, even though he's not a good guy. Antagonist does not mean good guy. Protagonist does not mean bad guy. And a lot of people think it does, but it doesn't. And if I'm telling you something you already know, please. My wife tells me I talk down to people when I'm explaining things, and I really, truly don't want to do that. But um, an protagonist is just the the person in that drives the story. The protagonist is the person that drives the story. The antagonist is the opposing force to the protagonist. They can both be bad. They can both be good. One can be bad. One can be good. That's one of those little things that creates so much variation. I don't know who said it, but somebody said that there are no new stories, and there's not. There's tropes, and there's stereotypes, and there's the same tales being told over and over again, whether it be a romantic tale or a fantasy sword and sorcery tale. And I write everything. I've written horror, I've written thrillers, I've written sci-fi, fantasy. I love fantasy. I tend to write thriller and horror most. Don't know why. Maybe that's because I read Stephen King a lot younger than I should have been. So I write situationally. I create this character, and I flesh him out as much as I can. A little bit more, but we're going to discover him as we find him in this situation. I situation right. A lot of people, they either plot or they pants. And what that means is I don't like to plot. And so I'm not a plotter. I can't just do it that way. Because I end up having to force my characters into situations kind of like the new Star Wars trilogy, right? Those characters, instead of getting out of their situations by their wits or the writer leaving them out, they just use the Force as a Deus Machina to to say it can do whatever they need it to do to get them out of the situation. And I don't do that. I don't like that, and my stories don't look good that way. I've done it, I've tried, but it just doesn't work right. So I put a character in a situation, and I think to myself, all right, this is this type of person. What choice would he make? What would he do? And this is where the reading a lot, watching a lot of movies, understanding a lot of stories. Over time, you'll be able to go, huh, what would be still in character for this person to do, yet not do what's expected? That's the definition of subverting expectation. Not to say, oh, well, I know that character would never done that, but I made him do it so that I was subverting expectations. No, that's just bad effing writing. So, I do write a loose outline of where I want the tale to go, but I don't write it based on that. It's more of a guideline, not a rule, a guideline, right? So that's how I get started. Uh, if you guys have any suggestions or comments, please leave them below. I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a great day. Hey, this is StoryMan-Jack. I just wanted to say thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody who tunes in, and look forward to seeing you next time. Please, if you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe. And remember, you're the creator and writer of your own story. Make it a great one. Thank you.